Hi, everyone. Welcome to our talk. This is Development for Non-Developers. All right, so I am Bree. I'm the gaming technology developer at Children's Hospital Colorado, and I create video games and mostly XR games for patients at the hospital.
And my name is Abe Homer. I'm the gaming technology supervisor here at Children's Hospital Colorado. I get to oversee and work alongside all of the gaming tech team using different technologies to help kids in the hospital.
So a lot of the projects we work on at Children's revolve around extended reality. We have like an AR game for ambulation. We've got games for physical therapy, distraction, social emotional support. Some things are a little more experimental that we're working on, as well as we've been dabbling in some 2D games and using different types of sensors to provide innovative ways to engage with games.
So some of you might be asking yourselves, but Bree, but Abe, why develop custom games? Can't we just use the games that already exist, the games that we love and know and already know how to play? I mean, you could, yes, but there are certain considerations to make, and most games that were designed for the general populations weren't necessarily designed for patients in a hospital. Because remember, as most of you know, patients have restricted mobility, they have restricted range of motion, they possibly have limited or no ability to use a normal controller, possibly slower movements, and they could have trauma responses to certain stimuli within games. So if a kid is in the hospital for a dog bite, you don't want them to play a game that they're interacting with dogs and stuff like that. And games, as I think we all know at this event, are way more valuable than just entertainment, especially within the healthcare context. Custom games can encourage specific behaviors during a specific session or a specific co-treatment session. It gives patients an outlet for creative expression through things like art therapy. It can distract patients from different procedures. We're going to hear a lot about more VR for pain distraction. We heard about sickle cell disease using VR for that pain distraction. Games are incredible for pain and distraction. They also can provide social and emotional support for kids and much, much more.
But we know that for a lot of you, game development or coding is not necessarily your background. Perhaps you've never thought about developing a game. Maybe the idea of it seems pretty daunting. You may not have time or tools or resources, and some of you may just not be interested and just, hang on, we'll get through this, and maybe you'll change your mind by the end of it. But what I want you to know is that you can make games. There are great tools that open up game development and programming to a broader audience. And patients can make games. Creating games is such a great outlet for creativity and self-expression. It provides exposure to valuable skills, and it provides opportunities for patients that they may not get outside of the hospital environment. You can make other things as well. So maybe your program is more focused on like 3D printing and laser cutting and stuff like that. There are really great low-code tools to integrate hardware into these projects to give you things like LEDs and different sensors and embed those into your projects. And finally, what I want you to know is that what you make can be useful. And what we're going to talk about today is not how to make a VR game or a AAA game. You're not going to be able to use what we show you for that. But in pediatrics, games don't have to be big and beautiful and complicated in order to be useful and good and make a difference in the lives of patients. So today, Abe and I are going to provide tools, resources, and ideas that will hopefully inspire you to incorporate game development into your own practice.
So before we jump into some of the hardware and some of the code examples that we use, I always like to talk about these game design considerations that we utilize as a team and I utilize personally as a designer. They're just considerations to make, kind of ideologies to take with you as you're embarking on your game development journey. So the first thing that we've talked about, Xbox talked about it this morning, is accessibility. This is definitely number one when you're developing games for kids in the hospital. You want to limit the number of inputs, just like Xbox was talking about this morning with all of their great hardware that's coming out. You can do that much easier. You want to create multimodal interactions. This is particular for XR, namely VR and stuff like that. But you want to be able to provide multiple ways for patients or kids to interact with the game. This could include hand tracking and then switching to controllers, or one-handed controllers, or integrating adaptive mechanisms into the actual code of your game. Can your patients play in different postures? Is the patient going to be able to play standing up, or do they need to play laying down, sitting down? Do they need to play in a really weird position that no game off the shelf is designed to be played in? Pictures are always better than words, especially when working with younger kids. They see pictures all over the place. If there's a lot of text in a game, that can kind of mess with the user experience of the game. And include patients that speak other languages. That's part of accessibility. Cultural inclusivity is very important within the hospital. So if you're able to include that from the design stage, it's all the better. User experience, or UX, is a big thing to consider when making games. Simple is often better. We don't want crazy mechanics. We're not making Call of Duty. We're making games that are meant to be therapeutic. So we want to make them simple, but still fun. And make them fun for both the patient and the provider. If you can engage the provider, you'll engage the kid that much more. Most importantly, if it's not easy to set up or use, especially if you're developing these for co-treatment sessions, they will not be used. If it adds any more than a few seconds to the setup process, it will sit on the shelf and collect dust. So that's a big consideration to make when you're designing stuff for procedure supports. Encourage engagement, avoid frustration. You don't want people to feel dumb when using your game. You want them to feel empowered. Theme and content, I think this is somewhat common sense, but I think a lot of off-the-shelf games nowadays are shooters. But within pediatric healthcare, we want to avoid things like fire, guns, violence, gore, horror. Those generally aren't very appropriate for the context of pediatric hospitals. And consider whether a chosen environment, theme, content may be related to a trauma that a child may have had. I know I personally, in the beginning of my career at the hospital, I've had kids who have come in for partial drownings, and I gave them a game that had a lot of water, not realizing that that could be a traumatic trigger for them. And luckily we were able to talk through it and change that, but it's a very big consideration that we now make at the forefront of our design process. Security is a big one. Oops. Wait. Security. You don't want to collect PHI. You don't want social logins. The stuff that CoPlay is doing with like anonymized logins is great. Doesn't share sensitive data with third parties. Chatting with strangers is obviously a big concern, especially for like online or multiplayer games. And if possible, limiting the need for Wi-Fi, because as we all know, hospital Wi-Fi can be questionable sometimes. So these are some design concepts that are a little bit more philosophical, but I think important as the advent of XR becomes much more widespread within healthcare. This is particularly for XR, but I think it could apply to any kind of design thinking within a healthcare context. But the first one is, we talk a lot about this idea of spatial respect. So particularly when you're developing AR or even video games, you want to respect the user's physical space. You don't want to obstruct their view. You don't want the environment that they're in to be a hindrance to the gameplay, like a hospital room. So you don't want floating panels that are obstructing their view. You don't want anything that's going to make them bump into things or make them unnecessarily get out of bed, stuff like that. The other thing we talk about is hands first, especially with XR. When we develop things with hand tracking, you want to develop those first because it's much easier to add controller support as opposed to adding hand tracking support after the fact. The other thing we talk a lot about as a team is this idea of predictability of confirmation. So this is talking about making navigation really easy, satisfying, and predictable within a game. So when you're trying to click on something, or when you're hovering over something, or you want to make that button press, the player knows exactly what button they're pressing. They know what button they're highlighted. There's no questioning what commands they're going to need for that game. It's very predictable and satisfying. And then this is the VR operating system conceptual model. That's a mouthful. But this is important to me, and Bria and I talk about this a lot as we consider the workflows of developing healthcare VR and creating a conceptual model for making these experiences easy for people to kind of digest and utilize. So using the signifiers of something like a two-dimensional computer desktop screen and expanding that to three-dimensional surfaces will make it much more intuitive for people to interact with it, because they're already used to that because they've done it on a computer. If you're interested in learning more about conceptual models for OS, the Apple Vision Pro has a great design deck where they talk about their different kind of design considerations throughout their operating system.
All right, so now that we have an idea of what to keep in mind when creating games, let's get into some tools. The main tool that I want to talk about today is called Microsoft MakeCode. So Microsoft MakeCode is a free online open source block-based programming tool for games and hardware. So if you don't know what block-based programming is, it's basically kind of a visual drag and drop way of programming, rather than what you might traditionally think of with coding, where you're writing text. It's easy to learn, yet it's powerful and flexible. It allows you to download your code onto physical devices. There's a variety of MakeCode editors that do various things. The one in the top left is called MakeCode Arcade. That's the one we're going to be focusing on today, and we'll get into that a bit more. But basically, it's a block-based 2D game editor to create cute little 2D games. There's also Minecraft Education has MakeCode embedded in it. You can use it to kind of tell a robot where to go within the game. There's different hardware that also uses MakeCode, a MakeCode editor. So Microbit is one of them. It's just this little computer with some LEDs and sensors and things like that. Adafruit's Circuit Playground Express also has an editor, and we'll show you some of that as well. And then like Lego Mindstorms has an editor. There's Chibitronics has cute little papercraft electronics that you can program for with a MakeCode editor. So let's take a look at what this actually looks like. So this is kind of what your MakeCode Arcade editor would look like. You have these blocks here, which basically define what happens at certain stages of the game. So on the left, I've organized this game so that you have some code that runs when the game starts. In the middle here, you have some code that runs on specific button presses. And then on the right-hand side, I have blocks that dictate when you win and when you lose. And you can see this entire game that I'm showing you is contained within just a single little page. And we'll go in a little bit, we'll go into this more and show you guys, I'll do a little tutorial on how this works. Go ahead, next one. So these games that you create can be created or played on a computer or tablet. You can then download it onto a physical hardware device. So we've got a couple devices. The one shown in the slide is called the KittenBot Meowbit. That's kind of a mouthful. It's this really cute device that you can just add a game to and then play it. It's great. You can also embed a game that you create into a website. I have found this extremely useful for integrating with different types of different types of sensors to play games in novel ways. And you can also easily share the games that you make with others. So what can you create? Oh, it's not playing all my gifts. I'm so sad.
Aw.
Aw, okay. Well, this isn't going my way, guys. Anyway, you can
All those are moving, just imagine it.
they're all supposed to be moving, and I'm so sad. Anyway, you can create platformers, you can create mazes, you can create infinite runners. We've got like the second on the top, like the top row, the second from the left is like this dinosaur that farts flames that eats meatballs and brains. I I made that one up. Yeah, that's based on a VR game that that Kevin worked on. But yeah, you can create so Kevin. So you can create so many different things in MakeCut Arcade. This is just a small sample of some of the games that are available and that you can create yourself.
Chris is farting flames right now.
Right now.
So we can talk about some of the use cases that we developed these games for here in the hospital. So one of the most recent things we've done at the hospital that's been super, super fun is teaching patients live in Seacrest Studio how to develop games using MakeCode Arcade. So we've gone down to Seacrest Studio and done what we call Video Game Lab, where we go down every few weeks and we have different groups of patients in the studio in there with us, and we're also broadcasting to the hospital live. And we have kids do live coding on air with us and create their own very own versions of their games on LumeoBit. You can even see down here, this is a little example of a dog jumping game that a patient made. And the cool thing is, you know, patients come in and we work with a lot of teenagers, and you know, they're maybe a little too cool for school, but we start showing them how to do this and they get into it and they really take to it. And a lot of the kids who are kind of resistant to wanting to learn a new skill are now asking for their games to be sent to them at home so they can actually work on them in their own time, which is really, really fun.
Yeah.
So there's our farting dinosaur friend on the right side of the screen. We did develop this for a specific use case. So we developed this. We're working with a provider who does bone density scans for patients. It's a situation where kids have to put their leg in a big weird machine and they have to stand or they have to sit really, really still. If they move their leg at all, the scan is all messed up. So the provider came to us and said, hey, can you develop a combination, both an immersive VR game and a 2D screen-based game that makes kids stay still during their bone density scans. So we developed a head-based VR game. What?
I'm sorry. I noticed they were moving. I'm like, oh, they're moving.
They're moving now. Woo! So we developed a immersive head-based movement game where kids can control a little planet and have to feed dinosaurs little meatballs that are coming down from the sky. So they wanted a similar game that was screen-based. So Bree developed this little dinosaur who also eat meatballs and has the added superpower of farting out flames to fly.
Awesome.
In addition, we developed this other game on the left, which utilizes a little puck. It's called a Puck.js. Bree has it right there. It's a really cool piece of hardware that has all sorts of different sensors in it, accelerometers, gyroscopes, buttons, all sorts of stuff. So you can see the graph below the gameplay is actually a graph of Bree doing breathing, and her breath is actually the thing that is making the air balloon go up and down. So we like to use a lot of alternative inputs like breath, like heart rate, like any biometric markers that we all have, and how do we utilize those for games, especially during co-treatment sessions or mindfulness sessions or stuff like that.
All right, so let's talk about Bree's favorite easily programmable things. I have a lot of favorite hardware things, so let's dive in. All right, so the first thing is MakeCode Arcade devices, which we already, you already saw the Kit and Bot Meowbit, but there's a variety of hardware that can run MakeCode Arcade games. Some of them are a little more like they come with a case, they come with a battery, they're pretty more, they're more put together, right? Some are a little more bare board. But installing a game on this hardware is as simple as dragging a file to a drive on your computer. It's very simple. Really, really satisfying to just click and drag your program onto a piece of hardware for anyone who's messed with hobby electronics. Like, it's a big deal. The Adafruit Circuit Playground Express. This is currently Abe and my favorite toy.
It's so fun.
It's so fun. So it's this little circular board. You can see that on the top left in the screen. You can use this for so many cool things. It has LEDs on it. It's got an accelerometer. It's got touch capacitive sensing. It's got, what else? A temperature
sensor. It has a mini microphone.
Infrared transmit and receive.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's got so much cool stuff, and you can extend it with a bunch of other hardware as well. And you can program this with its own MakeCode editor. And so the other little animations that we have, the other little images here are just some projects that you could do or some projects that we've made. The little glowing heart, that is like somebody, what did they do? They integrated the Circuit Playground Express into a 3D print and used touch capacitive sensing to make, basically when you hold the heart, then it starts beating and showing the LEDs. And so, you know, if you modify this a little bit, I think it could be something that's, I think this could be something that's cool for an educational thing, or maybe something that if you modify it could be used for like memory making. The next thing is Abe's project. You want to say something about that?
Yeah, this is just this is kind of a project that I was doing on my own, just kind of exploring the Circuit Playground Express and just seeing what I could do with it. So I make a lot of work in a program called Touch Designer, which is a visual node-based programming language that's mostly for like graphical visual stuff. But I built this like kind of wheel sculpture prototype that utilizes the gyroscope in the Playground Express. So as you tilt the screen, the liquid or the fluid simulation on the screen actually reacts to the gestures of the wooden sculpture. It's pretty cool.
It's super cool. And we also, so Austin and I are going to make an Iron Man arc reactor. So that'll be super fun. And then the one on the bottom right is actually my most recent sewing project. I don't know if people can see my camera or not, but this is a little plushy game controller that I sewed together, and it has, it uses conductive thread for capacitive touch. So this actually works if you, well, sometimes when it's not broken. It works decently well. And you can plug it into your PC and play little games with it. It's very cute. And then some of my other favorite devices, something I've been playing with, Espruino devices. So Espruino makes hardware that can be programmed via JavaScript. They don't have a MakeCode editor, but they have something kind of similar. You program the devices using web Bluetooth. And this is a little bit different than using kind of a normal Bluetooth device. You basically connect to the device from a web page. And once you close that web page, like you disconnect. But the really cool thing about it is that with a lot of hardware, you plug it in, you program it, and then you unplug it, and it does that thing until you reprogram it again. This, you can actually use the web page itself to program the device. So like with my Puck device, I can visit one website and have it work one way. I can visit another website that a website that I build, right? And have it work a completely different way for different gaming purposes. Everything is open source, including the STL files and all of the hardware stuff. And it's just a lot of fun. All right, demo time. I guess, can you? I'll tell you what, I'll share the link. I wanted to show you guys how to make your own game and kind of let you guys also do it as well. And we're just gonna see how that goes. Let me grab that link real quick here. Boop.
Look at the cute dog jump.
Look at the cute dog jump. All right, so I have pasted in the chat a little URL, and this is going to link, this is going to get you to that little sample program I showed you guys earlier, little sample game. Okay, so we can see this. Can you zoom out just a smidge? How much time do we have left? Is this until 3? We have 12 minutes. Okay, cool. I love it. I can go to the left a little bit. Maybe.
There we go.
Should we trade places? Okay, cool. Alrighty. Sorry about that, everyone. Okay, so this is Make Code Arcade. This is a little game that I created. So if you guys clicked on the link, you can go see this by clicking on the link and going to, I think, edit code.
Yep, at the top of the screen,
Yep.
says edit code.
Mm-hmm.
And then it should take you to the screen that you're seeing.
Yeah.
On Bree screen.
So you can follow along with the presentation, or you can do it yourself in your own little editor. So basically, we have this game where we have a dog, and the dog moves left and right. The dog jumps, but
there's nowhere for the dog to
there's
go.
there's nowhere for the dog to go. So we can jump, and we fall in the water, and oh no, that's not good, right? So we want to actually, the whole point of this is to just make a path for the dog to get from the beginning to the end where you can win the game.
Or you just have a dog swimming game.
Or,
and that's it.
Or you could do that. Yes, you could do that. So how this works, and I'll try to go through this slowly so you guys can understand. On the leftmost block is our on start block. This is what sets up this at the start of the game. We set our tile map. This is what our level looks like. And we'll go in and edit that in just a minute. We set our background color to this nice sky color. We then have a block here where we set our player sprite to a dog. And I've named it Galaxy after Galaxy at the hospital. It's one of our favorite medical dogs. We can add acceleration to kind of simulate gravity. I tell it, okay, when we start the game, we want to place Galaxy on the tile map in column 2, row 12. So it just basically tells you where to start the game. We set the camera to follow our player. And then this little block down here just moves Galaxy left and right with a certain velocity. Okay, so hopefully you guys are with me so far. That's the entire left block. Okay.
And if not, that's okay too.
If not, that's okay. I'll be available for questions afterwards. I know I have to go a little bit quickly. In the middle here, we have the functionality for the buttons. So I have this program to just go, it moves left and right. That's this block over here from OnStart. But when you press the left button, oh, hi. when we press the left button, I want to set my Galaxy image to be facing left. So when you move left, he faces left until you let go of it, and then he turns right. So I have this on left button pressed, change the image, on left button released, change it again. Pretty simple. And then when the A button is pressed, we check and see if Galaxy is standing on a wall, which we'll go over walls in just one moment. But basically, if he's standing on something. And if he's standing on something, we set his velocity to -120. So you can see he jumps. If we change this number, he jumps higher or lower or down, It just depends what value you put there, and you can edit this as you want and try these things out for yourself. And then finally, on the right-hand side, we dictate what happens when what do you have to do to win, and and how do you lose, basically, or start over. So this top block, it basically says when Galaxy touches the flag, he wins. And you win, and there's confetti, and everything's beautiful and awesome. And then, however, if you touch the water, Galaxy starts over at the beginning, and it plays this or some sound. So sad. I know. I'm loving this. Everybody's like, no. Oh no. So this is exactly what we had kids at the hospital do for Video Game Lab. We basically just said, okay, we're just going to create platforms and create a path from the beginning on the left to this flag on the right. Now, you can see on the left-hand side, these are all of our tools. We have this paint tool, we have an eraser tool, we have a variety of things here that we're going to use. But for now, we're going to focus on the paint tool. And what we can do, I'm going to just zoom in a little bit. And to maneuver around, you can use, if you select this hand tool, you can kind of pan around and you can use your scroll wheel to zoom in or out. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a block with my paint tool, and I'm just going to start drawing some little platforms and make a little path for my dog to get across, and hopefully none of these are too high. We'll just do it really quick. Cool.
Bree, if we tried to jump on these right now, would the dog go through them?
Yes, the dog would go through them. Which, okay, so Abe has led me to my next point, which is instead of just this purely just makes it look pretty, it sets up your environment to look the way you want, but it's not actually functional yet. So what you have to do is you select this. This is your wall editor, and we have to give the dog something to land on. So we highlight everything that we've made with the wall tool.
And this is I think this is the part when we were teaching kids that they struggled with the most, because they're like, I put my tiles down. So it's kind of like the red makes it a solid thing to jump on, and then the flowers, the green, makes it a pretty thing to look at. So it's visual and material, and those things have to work together for it to actually work.
Exactly. Okay, so I'm just going to say, let's test it out. Let's see if what we did actually works. So you go back and you wait a second. It will refresh up here. You can launch into full screen if you want. And then you can, hold on. All right, there we go. Now I can jump. Hello. Nope, too high. We're going to just go that way. So you got to test your game, make sure it's actually playable, which it's only, partially playable, but I think you probably all get the point of what we're trying to do here. And what we had kids do, you can set up little templates like this for kids and allow them to just, paint, create their environment, test it out, and they will often create something really amazing.
And then they leave and they're like, I'm a game developer,
right?
Which is amazing.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's basically it. Like, it's if you learn these tools, yeah, that's you're somewhat limited, and you're limited in what you can do, but you also have so much more capability to add game development to your program and create some really cool things yourself.